sensational speed, exhilarating efficiency, spine-chilling spirit. 7-0 for the first time in 15 years. These Sooners have business to attend to. On they march, unfazed by their detractors.
Hurts, play action, straight drop, pocket collapses, he'll run it himself, he's got all kinds of room. 10-5, he'll walk in. Easy like Sunday morning.
Get up, Oklahoma. It's that time. From Coweta to Cordell, from Stroud to Sallisaw, from Boise City to Blackwell. This is your state. This is your tradition. These are your road warriors. And this is your pregame show. From Manhattan, Kansas, as the Sooners prepare for battle, this is Gameday U.
Welcome back to this wonderful weekly episode of Gameday U. I'm Christian Nunley, as usual, joined by my lovely band of cohorts. Down the line, we got William Soule, Shiloh Sellers, Sam Brown. Guys, fifth straight 11 a.m. kickoff. This time we're here on set at Bill Snyder Stadium. Got the new portable desk. How we feeling today?
You know, I'd say usually the 11 a.m.s are starting to get to me, but I'm not going to lie, looking at this stadium, I'm very impressed. I didn't think that the stadium was as nice as it is, and it kind of creates the atmosphere, and it kind of builds everything early. So I'm excited for the game tomorrow night, I'm not going to lie.
I'm excited to just get away. It was rainy, cold weather back in Norman, so it's really nice to just be sitting outside, enjoying the sunshine, and being a little warmer, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, you said they built a great atmosphere, you know, it's Bill Snyder Stadium, so I thought that was kind of funny. You didn't do that, did you?
Good one, dude.
So funny.
You're so
Speaking
funny.
of dad jokes, my dad was in Manhattan, like New York, earlier this week, and we're in Manhattan, Kansas, so, you know, who had the better week? I mean, we'll let the people decide, but
where was
I'm
our invite?
a little jealous of my dad.
Where was our invite?
Where's my invite is a better question. I was in calculus.
Not quite the population of
No.
New York, Manhattan, but kind of close, 53,000. It's not too shabby.
It's like one apartment complex in Queens.
Yeah. Yeah, minus 100% of the rent. Week 8 of the season, guys. Last week we took down West Virginia. Now 7-0. Sooner Schooner went down on IR. Poor thing.
Rest in peace.
Sam mentioned it earlier. Thank God nobody got hurt. One of our Sooner Vision workers was in there, and he's okay. Thank goodness.
The ponies are okay.
The ponies are alive and well.
Yeah, ponies are all right.
No pony was hurt in
PETA
that
wasn't too happy
touchdown
about that.
celebration.
Yeah, seriously.
Love it.
I don't think we'll be seeing a return of the Schooner, but 52-14, shell-shacking of the Mountaineers of West Virginia.
Absolutely.
Big word.
A lot of takeaways that you could take away from this game. What do you got?
Yeah, maybe it was an early Saturday morning kick, so maybe the guys in the Schooner were a little hungover, but, I mean, Jalen Hurts was not. If you look at his numbers, phenomenal yet again for the Sooners. Only one incompletion on the day, which was a drop by Drake Stoops, and 3 touchdowns on the day, 316 yards, added 2 more scores on the ground, along with 75 yards rushing. You're really starting to see him develop more and more every game. We knew he was an improved thrower because of Lincoln Riley. We saw that against Houston. But now, last week, you're starting to see him go through his progressions, really read the defenses pre-snap, do a little more of the behind-the-scenes, the pre-snap stuff that Lincoln Riley is slowly imposing on him. And he's looking more and more dangerous every week. He's got, we've talked about it, the slew of receivers and running backs around him, the solid offensive line. I'm just excited to see how he continues to develop as the season goes on and these big games, these championship games start to come up.
Well, in Drake Stoops' defense, I feel like he got rocked on that one play. I distinctly remember him sitting there on a hitch right in the slot, and the linebacker ate his lunch. So
I've heard the quote all the time. If the ball hits the wide receiver's fingers, you gotta get it.
Yeah,
All right, we'll
it
throw
is fair.
Sam out there in the number 12
The fact
jersey.
that
and see what he's
Jalen
got.
would have had a perfect game, I think, makes the drop hurt a little more.
Yeah.
But my biggest takeaway has to be about the defense. Very thoroughly impressed with the amount of consistency that you're starting to see out of the squad. I think the unit as a whole is starting to find its rhythm, starting to figure out, all right, who goes here, who works there. And it's easy after a big game like Texas to think, okay, we'll see if you can keep it going. And they have. I think that, right now they're ranked 28th in total defense, which, I mean, that in alone, like, giving a round of applause to the Sooner defense is a wild thing to do.
Yeah.
And
True.
being able
True.
to do that is just nice, I think. It's nice to have a well-rounded team. I'm just as excited after watching the offense to see the defense and then vice versa. So it makes a good football, game.
Round of applause for the defense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, they're 23rd in points per game this year, and they've increased and gotten better in every single defensive statistic. Like, not just like a couple. Literally every single defensive statistic they're better this year. My takeaway from the game is something that didn't really have anything to do with the outcome, but I think it's something that Sooner fans have been thinking for a while, and to me, it's just kind of become official. There is no way Tanner Mordecai is starting next year. And I know it's a little early to talk about next year. We've still got a long way to go this year, but I think it's something that in games against teams like West Virginia, you have to be building that dynasty, building that program. And when you look at Tanner Mordecai, 207 yards in 6 games this year, 16 of 26, 2 touchdowns, both of them against South Dakota. That doesn't it doesn't stand out to you. It's not Oklahoma offense numbers. It's not bad. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not awe-inspiring. Whereas Spencer Rattler in 2 games, 6 of 8, 73 yards, 1 touchdown. But if you just watch the 2 guys, if you watch one versus when you're watching the other, one of them clearly is a better leader on the field, better field general, better guy that you're going to want to play for. And so, we talked about the offense, you talked about Jalen, obviously. The defense looked incredible. But to me, the biggest thing that I took away was I don't think there's any way that Tanner Mordecai is the starting quarterback come fall camp next year.
So you think Spencer Rattler's great numbers aren't a result of his low attempts? I feel like Tanner Mordecai has had more opportunity to fail.
That's fair.
Or succeed.
And my counterpoint to that is that he's also had more opportunities to impress, and he just hasn't. I mean,
fair.
Spencer Rattler, really the only those yards came on one meaningful drive at the end of South Dakota. So you can argue it's South Dakota, it's the end of the game against South Dakota, so even South Dakota probably had their backups in. But to me, he just had the energy. He had that charisma that you want to see in a quarterback, that Jalen had, that Baker had, that Kyler had. He gets the guys going. Like, he's the leader that they clearly, I think. I mean, no one on the team's going to answer that question now. They're all going to focus on this year. But I think deep in their hearts, I think they all know. And I think that Sooner Nation probably knows after. Mordecai's played in 6 games. Mm-hmm. And can you, tell me anything impressive that he's done in those 6 games?
Throw the ball well?
I mean, not that
well.
well.
First downs?
That's his job.
Yeah.
He's only averaging 7 yards an attempt, which isn't bad, but it's not.
Hey, there are other quarterbacks in the Big 12 not
I'm
doing
not
that
saying
well.
I'm not saying that he's a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm just saying he's not up to
Oklahoma
Oklahoma standard.
You think
That's
Lincoln
fair.
Riley's going to be
He's
a
not
flashier
Heisman.
guy?
He's not a Heisman contender.
Exactly.
That's
And
fair.
I'm not trying to bash on Tanner Mordecai because it's kind of like the situation with Austin Kendall,
I mean,
who
how hard
had
can you bash
a
on that,
decent
really?
game. Yeah, fair. Had a decent game in his return to Oklahoma, but Austin Kendall, the reason he transferred is because he's not that kind of guy. He's just not that elite level quarterback, and I just don't think Tanner Mordecai is either.
Understandable. Well, as usual, we got the opportunity to hear what players and coaches say throughout the week. We did as media members, but the viewers did not. So let's give you guys a listen in on the highlights.
I watched the tape on them. I mean, their team liked to run the ball. For me, like I said before, I'm a kid in the candy shop when you want to come in and say you want to run the ball. So, our mindset is to play physical every week. And I feel like, we've done that this season. I feel like that's what we're going to do this weekend. We're going to go out there and we're going to be us. We're going to do us and let the chips fall where they may.
Defense, offense, and special teams we call we-fence. So that's the only time the offense and defense is together on the field. And whenever all 3 sides of the ball are executing, we feed off of one another and knowing that we all have our back, not just the guys on offense, but if offense messes up, the defense go out there and get a 3 and out and so on and so forth. So that all comes in together and we play off of that.
Yeah, just you talk about the approach we have in practice, the intent we have in practice when we do the things we do. everybody's continuing to hold the man next to them to that standard and hold them accountable to doing their job. So it's an ongoing thing, but we just gotta continue to move forward together.
Guys, some interesting stuff that we heard there. Kenneth Murray, Jeremiah Hall, all of them. Toby Rowland went as far as to call him Bullfrog. I like that nickname. Kenneth Murray has really elevated his game. What are some of you guys' initial reactions from hearing what they said?
I mean, Kenneth Murray, right off the bat, you talked about him. He looks like a first rounder now in the NFL. I mean, the way he flies across the field, his range from sideline to sideline is almost unprecedented in the country right now. He flies to the ball, and like he says all the time, he wants to make sure you feel him. He wants to make sure you hear him when he hits you. He's always been a solid tackler, but now you're seeing him drive with that power. His muscle is finally getting put to good use. And, I mean, the impact that he has as the heart and soul of that defense is remarkable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he's got like 28 solo tackles. He's leading the charts right now just for his loss.
He's improved as a pass rusher too, as well.
Absolutely. He's taking yards back constantly. You know, it's the same thing every week. I feel like they're never satisfied. They're hungry. They're not taking anyone lightly.
They're running out of synonyms for
right. And that, I think that dissatisfaction is a really good mental place to be, because whenever you do take a step back, you are the alligator, as Jalen would put it. Then that is when teams like Kansas State can come up and really rock your world and make a difference. I think that moving on and almost not celebrating is going to really play well into how far they can go this season.
Yeah, you made that alligator reference.
Hey, let's not get too deep into that, because they're foreshadowing someone may or may not have that as their final word later in the show.
Okay.
I wonder who that could be.
We're gonna bring. I don't know who. Just it could be anybody. But you know, I don't want to get too into it now. But
You don't have anything to say later?
I mean, kind of. Yeah. I don't want you all stealing my takes now.
I can't blame you. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think the alligator thing is a point that we'll talk about later, but like I agree with Sam.
I agree. It will be.
We're definitely going to talk about it later. But Kenneth Murray is just straight up becoming a beast, and I think to me he's also exuding that leadership. He's gotten better in every aspect of the game every single year. I mean, he was a leader when he stepped on campus, but he keeps growing in that leadership, and I think he's taking a lot out of Jalen Hurts' playbook, and you can see the effect that Jalen is having on this team, and that he's not buying into the rat poison, not buying into all the hype that I think Kenneth Murray is getting for the first time, and deservedly so. Like, he's getting hype that he hadn't gotten before about as an NFL prospect, like you mentioned. I see him as kind of like a Devin Bush kind of character, like definitely like you've seen a guy who's now on the Pittsburgh Steelers just wrecking for that defense. And I definitely see teams that are going to want to look at Kenneth Murray coming into the draft, whether he'll go this year or next, whenever he goes, to kind of be that wrecking ball in the middle, because that's what he is for this defense right now. I mean, he is a monster, and he was all over the place against Texas, and he tends to rise to the occasion every single time he has the opportunity. So I definitely agree. He's definitely become even more of a beast. He was a beast last year. He led the team in tackles, and it wasn't even close. But this year he's gone from being a beast on our team to being a beast across the country.
I mean, that you talk about a pro comparison. How about another one? Patrick Willis is who I think of. I mean, for almost a decade, this guy was the rangiest player in football. You know, he could get from sideline to sideline. He can get upfield. He can penetrate the backfield. That's who Kenneth Murray kind of reminds me of right now.
Yeah. Do you think his coverage ability is similar to Patrick Willis?
I mean, it's not there, but it's improved. That's the thing. He's improved every single year he's been here in all facets of his game. He's slowly, steadily coming up. And, I mean, the jump we've seen in his aggressiveness and his physicality, that's what's boosting him up to the first round in a lot of mock drafts.
Yeah.
I think something, though, that's easy to overlook is his value as spreading the mentality and spreading that work ethic to his other teammates.
Yeah.
I mean, Turner Yell is rocking. He is taking out anybody and everybody. And I got the chance to talk to him after the game, and he said, I'm just out there and I'm enjoying it, and I'm just really taking each game to play football and to knock the crap out of people.
Yeah, sure enough.
And I mean it doesn't get better than that. When they go out there, they're enjoying what they're doing. Of course, they're going to work a little bit harder. And I think having a really great leader like Murray to kind of spread that out is what's also making our defense entirety way better. I think that he's definitely the guy who is like, all right, he talked about it. They didn't have turnovers. And somebody asked, but y'all had, this or that. And he's like, but we didn't have a turnover.
It's not a takeaway.
we'll run for that. That's not good.
It's that rat poison.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just like that constant, like, we got to do better. We got to get this. This is what Grinch wants. I mean, I think that him pushing that so hard is really getting everyone else to buy into the program.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned him in coverage, and I think that's definitely an area that he can continue to improve on. But he isn't asked to do that a lot in this defense. And maybe that's by design by Alex Grinch, just using the talent that he has. But I think, that's something he's definitely going to have to improve on when he goes into the draft. But with the way that he's wrecking the opposing quarterbacks, especially as a pass rusher, I mean, he's just a force to be reckoned with that you don't want to be using covering a slot receiver. Like, it would just be a misuse of his talents at the way he's built and the way that he's able to affect the game. It's a misuse of his talents if he's out there trying to, like, cover whatever the
Cover running backs.
Yeah,
Right.
like, that's not what he's supposed to be doing. The way he's, like, just a bull chasing the matador at this point. Just a guy on a mission.
Yeah.
And he's succeeding fairly often in that mission. Which is,
Mission Dick Butkus Award winner?
That was his mission. That's been his mission for a
That
while.
has. That's
Yeah.
been on his list. That's for sure.
We'll see.
very capable.
Absolutely.
Oh, I see that bee flying across.
Yeah, honestly, we've been
Scared the crap
Got a
out
lot
swarmed
of
with
views
these so
around.
far. Anyways, that'll be it for us on this first segment. When we get back, we'll hear from Gameday U's own Lindsey Gibbs. She's got some great stuff. And a little bit more on the Big 12. You won't want to miss it.
Good morning, Gameday U fans, or should I say good evening. I'm reporting from Campus Corner the Friday night before the game. As you can see, only the brave are out tonight as we look towards an early morning of tailgating tomorrow before our fourth straight 11 a.m. kick.
Rise and shine.
OU fans everywhere prepare for the fourth game in a row to kick off at 11 a.m. Fans and students will not back down to early morning tailgating, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and say OU fans are excited about it.
You know, they're really just hurting the local businesses. I personally don't like them at all because I have to get about, 8 o'clock in the morning.
And if you think you have it hard, the Spirit Squads have it much, much worse.
I usually get up about 5 hours before game time. We have to be at the stadium exactly 3 hours before kickoff, completely dressed and ready, and then we get down to the game about 40 minutes before kickoff to take pictures, see our family, and then do all of the pregame events. So it's definitely a really long day, but I mean, it is really rewarding to be down there on the field.
And Lincoln Riley has the most patience of us all when it comes to being told the game will be at 11 a.m. Again.
Is it ideal? No, but that's when they told us we'll play, and we'll figure out the recruiting end of it. We'll make it work, and like I've said before, it doesn't matter if it's 6 a.m. in the parking lot. They just tell us when and where, and we'll show up ready to play.
All right, Gameday U fans, I'm going to get to bed, but you guys are going to head back out to Will, Sam, Christian, and Shiloh in Manhattan, Kansas. Lindsey Gibbs, Gameday U.
Well, thank you for that, Lindsay. We have had our fair share of 11 a.m. kickoffs. There's no doubt about it. Guys, last week we talked about whether or not Baylor or Oklahoma State would cover the spread. Baylor covered. They won 45 to 27. They covered. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
They look good doing it.
If you're a better.
They look
I
good.
I have to
remember,
give it to them. I didn't think they were going to pull that one off, and they did.
I remember a certain
I
person
know, I know.
telling me
Blue
I
hair,
was
blue eyes.
crazy for picking Baylor. Baylor's not for real. They don't look like a ranked team.
Are they for real? What's up?
They are. Yeah, I mean,
You gotta say they are.
Like look at how they won. Charlie Brewer, not his best day passing, 1 touchdown. So what does he do? He adds another one on the ground. They had 4 rushing touchdowns on the day. They can beat you in the air, but they can beat you on the ground as well. They also had a fumble return for a touchdown, which sealed the game essentially for Baylor. This team is for real. I mean, they can win at home. They can win those tough, gritty games on the road.
What tough, gritty games?
Well,
This one.
from what it sounded like, Oklahoma State might have been the 3rd best team in the Big 12. So
I thought that they would be able to put the beat down on Baylor because I don't have yes, Baylor is undefeated. I think they've had a lax schedule. I don't think they've played like anyone who's really stood out to me as like, whoa. They're only averaging 484 offensive yards per game, which is good. Don't get me wrong.
Only 484?
Almost 500.
But it's good. It's good.
No, it's pretty good.
It's not great. I mean, you have what? You have last season West Virginia against OU had 704 offensive yardage. That is crazy. 484 is average, I feel like.
But that's not how Baylor is set up. That's not what their team does. Their team they don't intend to drop 50 a game and beat you because their defense is bad. Their defense is actually pretty solid. They're solid on all three sides of the ball. So they don't need to drop 500 yards and 50 points because they know their defense can get a stop. James and Blake Lynch were a little limited against Oklahoma State. Their offensive line did a great job protecting Spencer Sanders. And look what he did with that. An interception, 2 more fumbles. He's got more turnovers this year now than he does touchdowns. I mean, Baylor did a good job of capitalizing on Spencer Sanders' mistakes and Oklahoma State's mistakes, and that's why they deserve to win. That's why they deserve to be
They're
at the
only
spot that
ranked
they're at.
47th, though, and their highest total offense on ranked was OSU and K-State right here. I mean,
K-State's not a bad team.
We've talked about K-State. They're not bad.
I'm not trying to sleep on K-State. I'm not saying they're
You're
bad.
trying to sleep on Baylor.
I am
that's all.
sleeping on Baylor. I'm pressing snooze.
Let us hear why.
I
She
think
is
Charlie
so
Brewer
locked down on Baylor.
good. I think they're good. I don't think that they're like a top 10 ranked team. They will pose the Big 12 competition. I think they will be 1-2 with Oklahoma. I think they will pose that kind of competition. When we're looking at the whole national perspective, though, where does Baylor lie? In the middle. They're okay. They're good. They're average. Compared to last season, yeah, congratulations, Baylor. You don't suck. But
They've already won more games now.
I'm not
than they have
buying
all of last
in.
year.
I'm not buying in. I think that yes, they've rebuilt. Yes, they're good. But are they going to go far in the grand scheme of things? No.
I mean, I don't think either Sam nor I were sitting here telling you that we think Baylor's a college football playoff contender.
No.
I mean, our point was that I think, and maybe Sam may not agree with me, but I think Baylor makes the Big 12 championship over Texas, and the reason why is because I think they're legit.
But look at the. I don't know.
So Sam mentioned, Charlie Brewer didn't have that great of a game, but that didn't have that great of a game was 13 of 17 for 312 yards. That's a pretty efficient game for 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, and no interceptions. Baylor had 536 total yards on the day, so they can get it done offensively. And they had another guy emerge, Michael Hasty, who had 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. They're a balanced team. They're ranked 22nd in points per game in defense, which is just ahead of Oklahoma. So they've clearly, they haven't played Texas yet. They haven't played, but to the other side of that coin, they have the 7th ranked strength of record up until this point. ESPN ranked them as the number 7 team in strength of record, with Oklahoma coming in at 9. So they've played good teams, and they're clearly playing above what their pay grade was supposed to be coming into the season. So they're a quality team. They're ranked in the top 30 in 9 offensive categories: total yards, passing yards, scoring, turnover margin. They have an impressive resume. I do not think they're going to be undefeated for very long. I definitely don't think they're going to be undefeated once the Sooners leave town.
Yeah.
But I think you think that we think that they're up here.
Yeah.
We agree
They're
that they're
good.
good.
Why
not
are you
great.
hyping them up so much?
Because they're a threat.
They're
the
7-0.
biggest threat. They're 7-0.
They are the biggest
They're
threat.
the biggest
They
threat.
are the
So-
biggest
through the
threat.
season
But
and they
how
haven't
big
lost
of
a
a
game.
threat are they?
They haven't lost a game. We're more than halfway through the season.
You really don't think Kenneth Murray is going to sack the crap out of Charlie Brewer?
We don't know that.
We don't know
What we're
that.
saying is, of the teams in the Big 12 and of the teams
Yes,
left on
of the teams
Oklahoma's
in the Big
schedule,
12.
they are the biggest threat.
I agree with that.
So to bring this all in, should we be worried about them on November 16th when we play? Hopefully,
A
it's
little
a night
bit,
game.
yes.
I
I'm
think
saying no.
they are a
It's
viable opponent within the Big 12, but I just don't.
I think we're all on the same page. I just think you think we have
I
we're
think
way
you're
out.
overhyping them.
Here's what I'll say. At the start of the
Who else are
season,
we gonna
We're
hype?
on the
At the
TCU?
that
hot
very first-
train coming through.
Maybe
I
K-State.
mean, I'm not.
That very first episode of the semester, we sat outside Gaylord Memorial Field. And I sat there and said that Baylor could finish as the 3rd best team in the Big 12. And everyone thought, we'll see. Now we're sitting here, they're 7-0. They're the 2nd best, they're the 2nd highest ranked team in the Big 12. They literally exceeded my expectations to this point. So you can't act as if I'm not going to be excited. Yes, they've got tough games ahead. They've still got OU. They've still got Texas. Both games are at home. Those aren't going to be cakewalks. I said OU was going to walk into the Cotton Bowl and beat Texas by double digits. As of right now, I don't have them walking out of Waco with an easy win. That's what I'm saying right now is we should, it's not like they're average is
I mean, they're good enough. They're going to make a New Year's Six if they follow
the
the
number
projection.
14 team in the country can't be average.
If they follow the projection that we have them on, which I think is losing to Oklahoma and beating Texas, we all
That's
agree
what I
with
would
that?
say right now.
So that ends them by the end of the season, and then I would assume playing Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship, and then probably losing again.
Yes.
That's a New Year's Six bowl.
Yep.
That is a New Year's Six bowl for Baylor, and that is and I could see them
A year
winning
after,
it.
a year after going 6-6.
You tell me they don't beat Oregon? I could see them beating Oregon or Washington State or whoever they play in the Rose Bowl or Sugar Bowl, whatever it is. But they're good. I think we're all on the same page. They're good. They're not great, but these are the biggest threat in the Big 12.
Coach Rule is doing some great stuff out there.
Yes, he is. I do like him a lot. I really do like him a lot.
Green suits at Big 12 Media Days.
Yes, I appreciate the yellow tie.
Not everyone can pull it off.
Yeah, I do respect it. Guys, on the other side of things, a little bit down further in Texas, Austin, UT, Kansas.
I think we all are on the
barely
same page
squeak
on
out a
this
win,
one.
50-48. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Air out your mailbag. This is all the questions, concerns you got. Let's hear it.
I'm a big believer in the Big Dicker energy. I'm not a big believer in anything else about that team. There's not much that stands out about them. Sam Ellinger is still playing at a high level.
Jeez.
Can I go? Sam Ellinger is still going at a high level.
Rope, y'all.
We expected that from him. Listen, this team is average. They're a decent team. You look at this team against Kansas, and you can't tell me their defense reminds me of last year's Oklahoma defense, except with the injuries. Oklahoma's defense was fairly healthy for the most part. Texas is very skinny in the secondary, but other than that, they're just not impressive to me. Their offensive line is still kind of in shambles. They still haven't recovered from Oklahoma, and it shows. I don't know what to say about this Texas team moving forward.
One thing about the Jayhawks that you always have to give them credit is they're scrappy.
Yeah,
they'll come in and they'll get it where they can. And being as sloppy as Texas is right now, that's what happened. You can't be throwing out all these penalties and just kind of, I think Sam is I just like saying Sam because I feel like I'm talking about you, but
Please keep going. Please.
Sam, I think he's lost that sparkle. I think he's plateaued.
Don't say that about me.
I think he's plateaued a little bit. I think that he came in and there was, all this belief and you're gonna bring us back to glory, and
he's back.
Crazy.
And it hasn't happened. He kind of, I don't know. He makes things happen, but it's just on him. He's not putting any kind of belief in what's around him. I think Devin Duvernay is one guy that he can lean on, and I just don't think that he is really finding what works for the talent he has. And I think that he's deciding to put it all on himself, and then that leads to the point of the offensive line just being in shambles. You can't put all your eggs in the quarterback, basket if the O-line can't protect those eggs. And so I think that's, I just think that's what it really comes down to. And back to Dicker, the kicker. How many times can you say the kicker has won a game for you?
A lot for that.
Texas can at least say twice. Last year in the Red
River
River Showdown, and now in Kansas. And the thing is, he's only a sophomore. That's what's wild is that you have this guy come in and you're like, yes. You're going to win us football games. And it's the kicker.
He's clutch.
He is clutch.
That is clutch gene.
I have to say best special teams just because of Dicker.
Their punter's really good, too. I don't know his name, but they've always had a good punter.
Right. His ability to kick the football is on par. But, if your bright spot is your kicker.
There's some problems.
Yeah, I gotta applaud you, Sam. I am thinking over this. They are a lot like Oklahoma last year, except for two problems. Sam Ellinger's not as good as Kyler Murray.
Yes.
And their offensive line is not as good as the Oklahoma offensive line was. Sam Ellinger had 490 total yards in this game. You can't really blame him. 399 passing, 91 on the ground. He had a great game. 4 touchdowns, 1 INT. But I'm gonna read you 3 stats. Not tell you who's who. I don't want you to guess which team
this is
was
fun.
which. Okay.
This is like a
Total yards. Team 1, 569. Team 2, 638. Team 1, 31 minutes time of possession. Team 2, 28 minutes time of possession. Team 1, 27 first downs. Team 2, 33 first downs. Not a lot of difference there, Who's who?
Team 2 is Texas.
Yeah.
Correct?
Okay,
Yeah.
you're right. Team 2 is Texas.
Just
But
on
anyway,
the
you had to
first
think
downs,
about it.
You had to get that.
And the
yeah.
fact that you had to think about the fact that Texas and Kansas had comparable yards, time of possession, and first downs is awe-inspiring if you're a Jayhawk.
Yeah.
I mean, geez Louise. I mean, they forced 2 turnovers. Kansas had 0. Carter Staley, 310 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Carter Stanley looked like Baker Mayfield out there.
geez,
good lord.
Puka Williams had 190 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 7.6 yards per carry. Like, we've talked about Puka Williams and his talent for a while, but like
Kid
this,
is good.
he is good. And this Texas team had come into this year claiming to be DBU.
Oh,
And I don't even know if they can be like defense at all.
They're
Like,
ranked 119th in total defense.
Which is horrible.
Yeah, it's tough times.
It's terrible.
Where is the DB?
They're either hurt
They got
or they're
the
not
U.
showing
They
up.
have
Maybe
the U part,
maybe
but
they
not
can
the
have
DB.
like a front 11, you think, and just rush the quarterback every single time?
Engage 8, like the old NCAA football games. Just
They
send
just
them all.
line
Yeah,
up.
yeah, send them all in.
The
Just
line
have
of
them all on the
scrimmage.
line.
Engage 8.
They're like,
It seems
let's
like
just
that's what
all
they're doing
run.
in the secondary anyway, so it's not like it really matters.
One safety deep.
back there.
Right.
I say I hate to rag on Texas, but I really do love it.
Yeah, I think we all
It's
do.
so much fun.
One of our
It's so
favorite
good.
activities.
Yeah, I can do it week in and week out and not be mad at all.
I'm going to put that as a skill on my resume.
Just hating on Texas.
I'll endorse you on LinkedIn.
That is not a good skill to have. Just hating. Anyways, don't go anywhere. When we return, you'll hear back from Meredith Mulkey and the excellent studio crew back there, and the plays you chose as your top 5.
We're not in Kansas anymore, but welcome to Gaylord Hall Studios, and thanks for joining us on this special spooky edition of Game Day U. I'm Meredith Mulkey, and we'll get to our heroes and zeros in just a minute, but first, here are this week's top 5 plays.
Let's start your top 5 plays off with what became the biggest upset of last week in college football, Illinois over Wisconsin, and the Illini got a lot of help from this catch by Josh Imador-Bebe. How's that for a mouthful? Big name, big play for the wideout. Illinois would ride that momentum to an upset of the Badgers 24-23. Pitt and Syracuse. The Panthers never run short of trick plays, and they made no exception at the Carrier Dome. It's the double pass. Kenny Pickett with the strike to Aaron Matthews. Pitt would win 27-20. On to play number 3, Tulane in Memphis. Everybody loves a good one-handed snag, and Memphis' Austin Hall obliges us right here. Check this out as he stabs the interception. What an athletic play. 47-17 the final as Memphis rolls in this one. Tennessee and Alabama, and if you're looking for a play that sums up the last decade of volunteer football, this might be it. Jared Garantano fumbles the quarterback sneak on the 1-yard line, and Trayvon Diggs goes the distance in the other direction. Whatever hope Tennessee had of upsetting Alabama gone on one play. Crimson Tide 35-13. But the people have spoken, and this is your top play of Week 8. Air Force in Hawaii, you've never seen a play like this in your life. Looks just like an incompletion, right? Ball's dead. But all of a sudden, Milton Bugg is running the other way with it. If you didn't catch what happened there, take another look. The Falcons play a little hacky sack. That ball never touches the ground. It's a clean interception. Absolutely unbelievable. No wonder that's your top play last week across college football. Stay up to date with Gameday U on social media and be sure to vote for your favorite play of this week. And we'll reveal the winner on next Saturday's show. Meredith, back to you.
Back now in the studio, I'm here with Austin Hernandez, Kimber Ball, and Zach Verdia. And if you're a regular viewer, you're probably familiar with our Heroes and Zeros segment, but it's Halloween week, so today our Heroes and Zeros become Gargantuas and Ghosts. Guys, I don't know if you know what a Gargantua is.
I don't.
No,
All right, I didn't either.
Parker Thune must
I
have
had
come
no
up with
idea.
that one.
So I had to
it was
Google
Parker
it.
Thune. Spelling bee
So,
champ.
yes. Gargantua, person of great size, giant-like, so it makes sense to be your hero. All right. So, Zach, let's start with you. Who do you have?
All right, well, since you just told us the definition, this is perfect. I'm going with the kicker, Wake Forest kicker Nick Skiba. Skiba went 5 for 5 last weekend against Florida State in their 22-20 win. Basically had the whole team on his back, 16 points total of the 22 for them. He's 12 for 12 on the season now, perfect, 31 for 31 in extra points. He's basically been Wake Forest's offense. They've leaned on him heavy. They had a 9-play drive, 8, 12-play drive, a 6-play drive, a 10-play drive, and they all ended in field goals. Kicked 5 of them. They just couldn't do anything offensively. Sam Hartman started this game, and they scored 1 touchdown, and basically the rest of the time it was Skiba. He went 19 of 22 last year. He's missed 3 field goals in his entire career. They beat Boston College earlier in the year by 3, and he made 2 field goals. He hit one with 1:09 left against UNC to push that to a touchdown game. And so Nick Skiba, kickers don't get a whole lot of love. And I just figured, he had a great week. He basically put the team on his back, and Nick Skiba was my gargantua for the week, if I even said that right.
Never a great sign for your offense when your kicker is your big center of offensive production.
Yeah, not what you want, but he's the kicker. He just runs out there when they tell him to and kicks it. So, 20-yard field goals, they all count as 3, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Kemper, who you got?
Well, I went with someone not a kicker. I'm staying on the same bandwagon that I've been on for a couple weeks now. I'm going with the man doing it all in Dallas, Shane Buechele, the SMU quarterback. He was going all over the place in their last week win. He had 457 yards and 6 touchdowns, both of which are career highs. He had a touchdown of 75 yards. This touchdown exactly 60 yards, and then a touchdown of 33 yards and a 45-21 win over Temple. He has been flourishing in that SMU offense. They are 8-0. I have in my notes as 7-0. That is wrong because they beat Houston on Thursday. They are now 8-0 for the first time since 1982, since before their death penalty. Shane Buechele has put up career highs in passing touchdowns and in yards. Their offense has jumped from 80th to 11th in total offense. That is a 69-spot jump for a team that is largely the same from what they had last year. A lot of the same pieces. The big difference is really just Shane Buechele. He has come in, he's taken control of this offense and proven to be exactly what they need. Look at this deep ball, getting all the receivers involved now. He had a pass complete to 8 different receivers in this game, getting everyone involved. He's covering every inch of the field, and he's putting the SMU in a great position to look at a New Year's Six bowl come playoff time.
All right, Austin, who is your gargantua?
I'm gonna go Justin Herbert. The Ducks took on Washington at home this week, and that says it all. That's a big game. And I think it was their second biggest game since their performance against their season opener against Auburn. Justin Herbert, 24 of 38, 280 yards, 4 TDs, just overall a solid performance. They kind of fell behind midway through the game, and when you're away and you're not at home, that can get a little chippy. But Justin Herbert, he stayed in there, he stayed composed, and that's the biggest thing. That's what you want from your quarterback. And with Oregon being ranked coming into the polls at number 11, their only loss coming to Auburn, they're still kind of in the running to kind of squeeze in maybe to that last spot in the college football playoffs. I have a different opinion when it comes to that later on in the show, but we'll save that for later. But just overall, a good performance from Justin Herbert. He stood in there, unlike his performance against Auburn, and you got to give credit to him. The man did what he had to do, and he took care of business. So.
All right. Well, great gargantuas. I'm glad we had all good ones. All right, so let's flip it over to the Ghost. Very spooky Ghost who hasn't really showed up, hasn't played their best, can't really see him on the field. Who is your Ghost, Zach?
Well, my Ghost, speaking of can't really see him on the field, it doesn't get on it too often. Sticking with special teams, I'm going with Arkansas punter Sam Loy. Now, Sam had an interesting game last week. They're down 17-0, and they attempted this fake punt, which, to Sam's credit, they probably shouldn't have tried anyway. There's no chance with the way this team's playing that this was ever going to work. It's like one of the worst plays you'll ever see in college football. He is not only on Arkansas, but he has to punt for them. And out of the 127 punters with a minimum of 2.5 punts per game that qualify, he's 112th. Not to pile on him, because that's just it's the worst play I've ever seen, and I just had to throw him in there. It kind of goes with how the whole program has looked the last few years, and Sam Loy just really not looking great there.
You never want to see an interception pop up in your punter's statistics, but I think that's mostly on the play call. What is that play call?
What's
like Mac Jones
jet
thinking?
Sweep, or I don't know what he was trying to do.
Did somebody tell him to throw it like that? Like shot put?
Yeah. It was,
I do not understand it.
I don't know how to describe it.
That's how bad the play was.
It's terrible.
For my zero, I'm going, or for my ghost. Spooky. Ooh, gotta remember that. I'm going with the guy who's kind of, I think most people would say has had a disappointing college career so far. That's Kelly Bryant, the Missouri quarterback. Transferred over from Clemson. Look, they got off to a rough start this season. They had that loss to Wyoming in week 1, but they really rebounded after that. Their offense was averaging 38 points per game, over 38 points per game. But it came to a crashing halt, and they broke one of the cardinal sins of the SEC. You cannot lose to Vanderbilt. And that is exactly what they did. They lost to Vanderbilt 21-14, their worst offensive performance, and largely in part to Kelly Bryant. 13 for 26, 140 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Poor decision making, looked uncomfortable in the pocket, seemed rattled pretty much the whole game. He was sacked twice, and they were 3 for 15 on third down conversions. This is a team that I'm worried here in the back half of their schedule. Missouri could fall off the rails a little bit. They've got a brutal stretch of games coming up here. They go to Kentucky this week. They go to Athens to play Georgia next week. And then they've got Florida at home. Things could get ugly for Missouri, especially if Kelly Bryant doesn't step up. He has a couple more weeks like he did last week.
Yeah, I'm going to go Spencer Sanders. It was Oklahoma State's homecoming when they took on Baylor. And so, the atmosphere is going to be there, the crowd's going to be there, and it wasn't a good performance. 18 of 32, 157 yards, 1 TDs. He had 3 turnovers, 1 interception here. That's just a bad one there, just an underthrown ball. And he had a couple fumbles which were crucial, just setting up Baylor to score here. And when you're playing, a really good Baylor team and at home, you can't afford to have these type of plays. He had a fumble right before this play, which set up Jermichael Hasty here for another touchdown, which ultimately put this game away. Spencer Sanders, he hasn't had the best year, and I definitely think, coming into the season, this Oklahoma State team, they were a lot better than we thought, but I mean, just overall, the performance wasn't there, and he, like you said, he kind of went ghost mode in that one. So.
I don't know if I'd say Oklahoma State's better than we thought.
I think after that performance against Texas, and they kind of hung in there. Coming into the season, we thought they were going to be terrible, but I think expectation-wise, they were a little bit better than what we expected.
Especially a homecoming game.
Homecoming game.
You expect OSU with that kind of homecoming to
for how much they talk up their homecoming.
Great atmosphere and just a dud of a performance.
All right, well, we're just getting started here on Game Day U. When we return, the terrifying themes continue. 3 and Out has been Halloweenified, and how scared are Austin Kemper and Zach? Find out next as Game Day U continues.
We not scared.
Coming up in about 15 minutes here on Game Day U, Christian, William, Shiloh, and Sam will stir the cauldron, and to be honest, I'm a little scared. However, we're about to find out how scared these 3 are because this segment is called Are You Scared? All right, guys. First up, Tua's big injury. Is this something that you're scared of? Is this going to hurt Alabama, or will they be fine? I mean, it's Alabama. Are they okay without Tua for a little bit?
That's exactly what I'm going to go with, Meredith. I think they'll be fine. They have Nick Saban, which is a good start. He can basically put out whatever quarterback he wants out there. They had Greg McElroy and A.J. McCarron for a while. We haven't seen them with a real quarterback basically ever until Tua this year. I think Mac Jones can come in and he can handle it enough. He can dump it off to Najee Harris, who has been a huge threat out of the backfield passing. He has 3 rushing touchdowns and 4 receiving touchdowns. So if he can just dump it off, he has Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. He has so many weapons that he can just go to and they can make plays that I think Mac Jones will be fine. And even more, I think the defense will be there for them like it always is. Terrell Lewis has 6 sacks on the year. He's been a menace on their defense. Anthony Jennings has 4. They have multiple guys with multiple interceptions, along with Trayvon Diggs, who has 2 fumble recoveries, and we already saw him take that one back over 100 yards last week. And here it is again. I just think that Alabama has too much talent they have too much talent to fall off without Tua. I think Tua can even try to come back after this game and then the bye week and play against LSU. If not, Mac Jones just needs to manage the game. And if Alabama can keep it close, they can win any game they want.
All right. Kemper, are you even a little scared?
I'd be very scared if I was a Crimson Tide fan about this injury. Because it's not about Arkansas. It's not the fact that they're playing Arkansas this week. We know Mac Jones can probably come in and Saban can get them this win in their sleep. They could probably start me at quarterback and beat Arkansas. But what you're worried about is long-term effect. Now, he does have a bye week after this to get ready for LSU, but if they rush him or he takes a bad hit against LSU and he furthers this injury, we're looking at long-term postseason problems. And if you think Mac Jones is going to get the job done in postseason, I think you're kidding yourself a little bit. If they get into a shootout with some of the offenses that we're expecting to see in the college football playoffs, the Oklahomas, the Ohio States, the LSUs, I like their odds with Tua Tagovailoa under center a lot better than Mac Jones. This is an injury that hobbled them last year, and they fortunately had Jalen Hurts to bail them out. They don't have Jalen Hurts this year. Mac Jones is going to have to be the guy that comes in, and I just don't think that he is the guy that can get it done and elevate this program to where they need to be for their lofty postseason goals. We all know what Alabama's done. We know what the standard is for them. They have a very high bar. But Mac Jones is not going to be the guy to get them there. So I'm not worried about this week for Tua, and I'm not scared that he will be back for LSU. What scares me is aggravating this injury further and creating more long-term problems for their postseason, their SEC championship game potential.
Yeah, okay. You kind of nailed it there. I'm going to say the same thing. I'm actually terrified. The two key points that you pulled out was long-term and was that they don't have Jalen Hurts. And those are the two key things behind this. You kind of said it. When Tua Tagovailoa returns, he's gonna come back against a very physical LSU team. If he tweaks that ankle again, I know Zach kind of said Mac Jones just kind of has to be a facilitator in there, but I don't think he's going to be able to get the job done, especially in a big game like that. Alabama, they still have to play LSU, Auburn. Winning those games, they'll go on to the SEC championship, having another big game there. And it's kind of a similar situation to last year. Tua, he kind of hurt his ankle again, and we kind of saw what happened last year. Jalen came in, bailed him out. I don't think he was. I know he had a good performance against Oklahoma, but I don't think he was 100% still. And we kind of saw that in the Clemson game as well. He looked amateurish, and it was an all around not good performance. So I definitely think long term it'll affect him, and the fact that he doesn't have a good quarterback there to back him up definitely comes into play as well. So I'm going to say I'm terrified with this Tua injury.
Especially with LSU looking ahead, we know Coach O is a guy that gets fired up for these kind of games. He loves playing against Alabama. If you don't think he's going to be sending that defense after Tua Tagovailoa, if you don't think he's going to be saying, go get that quarterback. Not saying he's going out there trying to injure Tua Tagovailoa, but they're going to be playing aggressive. They're going to be looking to make him feel uncomfortable in the pocket and force him to move on that high ankle injury. And it could send their season into a downward spiral. How far can they fall? It's Alabama, but still they've got high goals.
Yeah, the thing is with Tua, if his ankle's not 100%, he won't be able to be as mobile as he is. He's not going to be able to scramble outside the pocket, roll out, do the type of things he does. So if he's not 100%, that's a game changer right there. So
absolutely.
So we're a little scared.
Just gotta trust
just
Nick
a little
Saban.
bit. All right, so let's move over to Mr. Trevor Lawrence. Clemson, champions last year, but everybody had big hopes for Trevor Lawrence, but it's looking like he's not really living up to the hype. So, Zach, are you scared at all about this?
I am not scared. Again, I'm going to go back to back. I trust Trevor Lawrence. I think that he is the quarterback that everyone thinks he is. Last year people were talking about this guy, they're wondering how maybe there was some sort of loophole he could leave after his freshman year. Like, this is a guy that is really good at quarterback, and he just is struggling a little bit right now with the 8 interceptions. He has 19 total touchdowns, though, 14 passing, 5 rushing. He's using his legs a lot whenever he needs to. And whenever you look at the sophomore slump, people talk about it a lot. Deshaun Watson, his sophomore year at Clemson, had 21 touchdowns at this point in the season. Trevor Lawrence has 19 total. Both had 8 interceptions, 63.6 for Deshaun Watson, 63.7 for Trevor Lawrence. It's just what happens sometimes sophomore year. People start to figure you out. You have to change your game plan for upcoming for better teams that are game planning for you more. And Trevor Lawrence just has an arm that you don't really need to worry about it too much. He's going to go out there. He's going to make the throws you need when he needs to. And if anything, last year was an indication. He had only 4 interceptions. He'll get back to that, and I think Clemson and Trevor Lawrence will be just fine.
Okay. Kemper, are you scared for this one? Not scared?
If you've watched the show, I don't think there's much mystery around my feelings about Trevor Lawrence. He has been so disappointing this year. Disappointment is the word that I use because he hasn't been bad. He just had high expectations. And so, yes, I'm very worried about Trevor Lawrence from a Clemson fan perspective. He's already doubled the amount of interceptions he had last year. He's done it in about half the throws. His decision-making has been terrible. His ball placement, terrible. He had 2 interceptions in the first half against Louisville, and they were both deep downfield interceptions, like in scoring position interceptions. He does not look like the all-pro world beater that we thought he was going to be after this national championship game last year. It's a very good team still, and Etienne is still balling, and Dabo Swinney is still a great coach, so something isn't clicking in this offense, and it's clearly Trevor Lawrence. I think we probably wouldn't be talking this much about him and probably wouldn't be talking about how bad of a year he was having if we didn't have such lofty expectations for him after the national championship. But no way this guy should be leading the ACC in interceptions. That's a fact. He's leading the ACC in interceptions. Does that sound like a team that's going to win a national championship? What's he going to do if he's got to throw against that LSU secondary that's so stout? I mean, he's going to have to make the throws that we saw him making last season. And I just don't think this is the Trevor Lawrence that's capable of doing that. I think it's really going to hurt Clemson. A little preview to later in the show. But I think they're going to stumble eventually, and I think it's going to be because of him.
Yeah, we're on the same page here. I'm going to also agree with Kemper here. Trevor Lawrence, coming into the season, we had high expectations, especially, from his performance from the national championship game. He looked phenomenal. We were calling him this phenom of a quarterback, but now he's kind of fallen off. And Kemper mentioned it earlier, a lot of teams, they now have film on him. They kind of studied him. They kind of know his game. And, 8 interceptions are only midway through the season. His decision-making just hasn't been as crisp. And, when you play big teams like Kemper said, LSU, whoever, if they do make it to the playoffs and they end up playing, LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, whoever they end up playing, you can't make these type of mistakes. You can't afford to have these interceptions because the teams they're playing now may not be able to capitalize off of them, but LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, whoever it is, they're gonna capitalize, and you can't afford to have these type of mistakes. And he's still a good quarterback. You're not taking anything away from Trevor Lawrence. He's still a good quarterback. He still has skill there, but I think when we compare it to the expectations we had coming into the season, he's just not living up to it. He's not living up to a top Heisman contender, and it's still a good year for him. But I think in the long run, if he continues to make these mistakes, it's not going to be a good turnout for Clemson. So
not living up to the Heisman contender. I mean, he started the year as a Heisman favorite.
He was up there.
He is not in the Heisman stratosphere right now.
He's fell off completely.
Is nowhere near that conversation. Yeah. He is mediocre at best right now, in my opinion.
They went 14-0 last year. He was the number 1 quarterback coming in. All that hype. I mean, eventually something's got to give. He's not going to play like that forever. I think there's no doubt he's going to come back better than he has been in the past. This season, I think for the rest of the season, he'll be fine. I think next year he'll be a Heisman favorite again. He'll probably win it, and he'll go first in the draft, like 100%. It doesn't 8 interceptions it doesn't mean Trevor Lawrence isn't the quarterback he was for 14 games his freshman season last year. I mean, I know when I was a sophomore, I just had to worry about going to class. He's got a He's never lost a football game.
I think that's the biggest thing, though, is you said it. His freshman year, he kind of the pressure's there, but he kind of has that in that mind. Like, if I screw up, people are gonna say I'm a freshman. It's kind of an excuse. But now after his performance, everyone's all eyes are on him. There's a lot of expectations there, and that can get to you a bit.
You say he's gonna turn it around. He's gonna come back, but when? What is that Clemson game left on their schedule that is going to be a big chance for him to make a statement and come back? Their schedule is so soft, and they don't really have a lot of big game opportunities. I guess Duke in the ACC championship game would be a chance for him to come back and have a big performance, but the time's not left on the schedule for him to make a huge impact. And for him, if he's going to establish a rhythm that's going to carry this team to a playoff spot and through a playoff run, he's got to get going right now, today, against Boston College. It's got to be a huge performance.
Definitely has to take advantage of those opportunities.
It's definitely a team that you can take advantage of.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Okay, our last one here, guys. I don't want you to get too scared. Penn State, they're undefeated right now, but are they for real? Is this a team to be worried about? Will they stay undefeated? Do they have a chance? Zach, what do you think?
Whoa, scary
I
question.
am scared. I am not scared again. Well, no, I am scared of Penn State. I do not think that they're real. I confused myself with my notes there. Penn State, they're going to lose a game. They're going to lose a game for sure at some point the rest of the year. They just slipped past Pitt early in the year, 17-10, barely beat Iowa 17-12. And then last week they were up 21-0 on Michigan, a team that nobody thinks is really that good. They've shown that their offense is pretty stagnant with Shea Patterson, but they just couldn't do anything after they scored those 3 early touchdowns. And I think that Clifford, their quarterback, he had 4.9 yards per completion against Iowa, 7 yards of completion against Michigan. They're just dumping it down. I think that they have the schedule for the rest of the season. They have to play Ohio State. I don't think there's any way that their offense can keep up with 49 points a game, Ohio State. And on third downs, Penn State was 4 for 13. Michigan was 7 for 17. They only had 283 total yards against Michigan. Michigan put up 417. They have to play at Michigan State today. They travel to Minnesota. They still play Ohio State, like I already said. I just think that this Penn State team, although they are a good team, I just think they're going to lose at another game this year. And if you lose one game, especially with the talent that's in college football right now, then I just think you're done.
Okay. Kemper, you scared?
What? Am I scared for Penn State? Then yes, I guess that's how I would say. Yes, I'm scared. I don't think Penn State is a playoff team. I was discussing this with my dad earlier this week. Shout out to the parents in the studio right now. We were discussing this earlier, and we were looking at their early non-conference schedule. And they played Idaho and Buffalo, I believe. I know they played Buffalo. But these are not competitive games. They have not played a high-tout competitive offense. And they've looked a little sluggish at times, especially against Michigan. But for teams in the Big Ten, and it's kind of a similar situation in the Big 12, but for teams in the Big Ten that came into the season looking for playoff spots, that's Penn State, Wisconsin, and Michigan, the unfortunate thing is all roads go through Columbus. It all comes down to, can they beat Ohio State? And I think this Penn State team is very good. They play great defense. They've got receivers that force big plays down the field, but I just don't think they've got the juice to beat Ohio State. They're a great a great defense. They really force you to beat them through the air. Only one team has thrown for over 300 yards on Penn State this season, and that's Pitt. But again, it comes down to, can they beat Ohio State? And they have not faced a passer like Justin Fields, who is just a different level, a different stratosphere. Second time I've used that word today. Different level from any other passer that Penn State has faced this year. And I'm worried when they play him, he's going to kind of have a field day. If they're going to say, okay, Justin Fields, you beat us through the air, he's going to have no problem pouring in 5-6 touchdowns, 400 or 500 yards. It could be a big game, and I think that's ultimately, I think they end up in a good bowl game, and maybe next year they're competing for a playoff spot. I just don't think they've got the juice this year.
Okay, fair enough. Austin, how do you feel?
I'm going to keep the train going here. I'm going to say I'm not worried about Penn State being a college football playoff contender. We talked about it, or Kemper said it earlier, being in the Big 12, we all know that Ohio State kind of runs that conference. Penn State, take nothing away. They're a good team. They got a good offense, good defense. But, last week against Michigan, Zach said it earlier, they went up 21-0, and they kind of went stagnant after that, almost letting Michigan come back. And we know that this Michigan team, they're not a very good team. They kind of look a little bit amateurish. But, if Penn State, when they do play Ohio State, and they have a game like this where they kind of go stagnant, they're gonna fall behind. They're gonna fall behind bad. So I think when you look at the big picture, Penn State is a good team, but you got to keep in mind Ohio State kind of sits in front of them, and I mean they're firing on all 4 cylinders right now, and they're looking unbeatable. And I mean in the long run, I think it all comes down to Ohio State taking the Big Ten. So
if they can sneak a few big plays in against Ohio State, I really think it's just about if they beat Ohio State. Because I think if this team were to get a shot in the playoff, unfortunately, I think if it were against Oklahoma, I think they can make some noise. I think they can make some big plays. This is a very well-coached team. I don't think it can be overstated how impressive the job that they've done at Penn State is. From one of really the darkest moments in the history of college football, that Penn State scandal that occurred a few years back, to have them back to playing at this high level and to be getting these recruits and getting the guys that they need to get the job done, it's pretty impressive. They're definitely going to be a team to watch in the next couple of years.
Yeah,
just not right now.
Yeah, give all credit to them, like you said. They kind of hit a slump, but now they're on the come up again. I do think it's going to be a couple years before they kind of make that next jump into a college football playoff contender. But I mean, they're almost there.
They're just not ready to get into that upper top 4 teams, those Ohio States, Auburn, or Alabama's, Oklahoma's. They're just not there yet, but they're close. They're getting there.
They're getting there.
All right, well, 1 hour down and 1 to go here on Game Day U. When we come back, we'll send you back out to Manhattan. The absolute hottest takes of the morning are on deck when Game Day U continues.
Guys, let's begin the start of a bright new segment here on the Gameday U set. Halloween is upcoming Thursday, so let's go ahead and stir the cauldron. Sam, let's get it. Come on now. You gotta make your own cauldron.
I'll kick it up. Stir it?
Stir it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need two hands. I haven't been to the gym in a while.
Attaboy. You know what? Neither have I. No shame in it. Actually, we probably should get back in there. But anyway,
I think we need to.
After Halloween.
Go for it.
After Halloween, we get all the candy in us. Anyways, we're gonna stir the cauldron. Sam, stir it for us.
Let's stir it up right now. Why not? This year, this college football playoff, this national championship, will feature neither Clemson nor Alabama.
Ooh,
I'm
it's
going
hot
for it
over
now.
here.
I'm going for it now. Let's
like
start
it.
right off the top.
Okay.
Let's start with Clemson. First of all, Clemson, it's so hard not to compare them to the 2013 Florida State team. High expectations going into the season, especially with their star quarterback. A star quarterback who then underwhelms into the season. They just kind of look apathetic, a weak schedule. They kind of cruise to the playoff, and they get tripped up by Oregon in the playoff. I believe that's what we're seeing with this Clemson team. They've got talent on like everywhere you look. Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, Ross and Higgins at wide receiver. Their offensive line is solid. Their defense is loaded with stars. Isaiah Simmons on the inside. And yet you're sitting here and you're not impressed. Like, it's hard to – Clemson's not really doing anything to shock me. Trevor Lawrence has 8 interceptions right now. He had 4 all of last season. Granted, early in the season, he didn't see as much playing time while he was fighting for that starting job. But still, I mean, you'd expect better. You expect better from this team, and you're facing a lot of weak competition. The ACC is god-awful this year. Wake Forest managed to sneak back in the top 25.
They're just
otherwise they wouldn't have a ranked game this year. And then Alabama, I mean, it's hard not to be a little worried with Tua's injury, just because you don't know. They're going to need Tua in that shootout against LSU later this month.
Yeah,
you know, this isn't an Alabama team that can ride their defense. That hasn't worked out too well for them this year. They're starting 7 true freshmen so far, and their defense 26th in total defense compared to a top 5 that we expect from them, 40th in rushing defense. That's their biggest weakness. And without Tua, they don't run the ball very efficiently to begin with. Mac Jones, not a very proven quarterback. There's just a lot of question marks around these teams, which there shouldn't be, given that they're undefeated. They're number 1 and number 2 in the country, or actually Clemson's number 4 now. We shouldn't be at this point. And so I think that Clemson might make it and get tripped up. Alabama, who knows? They've still got LSU.
What is
Auburn,
it going
the
to take
SEC
for them to do, though,
championship
to
game.
get them moved out of that number 1 spot?
I mean, they're gonna have to lose.
They're gonna have to lose, obviously, and I think if you look at it, I think Ohio State, Clemson, and potentially Oklahoma could all finish the year undefeated, and at that point you look at the SEC champ. It's just straight up. If Alabama doesn't finish as the SEC champion, I don't think they're in.
So what happens if an Alabama loses to LSU, and then LSU goes out and loses to Georgia, and then it's just this SEC
It's like a
debacle?
Chaos. That's chaos scenario 1, unfortunately,
Yeah.
that Oklahoma does not want to see.
Yeah, and Notre Dame is hoping that all of those dominoes.
Notre Dame's
Yeah.
done. They're out. They're out.
Oh, yeah,
Can we
there's
get
no
off
way.
Notre Dame?
That's a
please?
whole
Shout out.
nother-
Go ahead.
whole
stir the pot.
nother
All
problem.
right,
Yeah,
I'm going to
talk
stir
about
my
it.
pot.
Let's scoop Notre Dame out of there and get this pot going.
Get some more mix in there.
So I'm going to take a hot take, and I'm going to keep it right here in the Big 12, and I'm going to kind of go back to when we were out here previously getting to rag on Texas, because I'm going to say Texas doesn't finish top 4 in the Big 12.
Wow.
I got them at number 5.
Who do you have ahead of them?
I have Oklahoma at 1, Baylor at 2, Iowa State at
Go
3rd,
Cyclones, baby.
and I think
My hot
either K-State or Tech could come in 4th,
Wow.
depending on how they play the rest of their schedule. Texas
But
still
in
has
Manhattan,
Baylor,
it's
Iowa
further
State,
away.
and Texas Tech left. So the thing with Tech, though, is like I said with the Jayhawks, is they're scrappy. And because the Longhorns are playing so sloppy, I think that could give the Raiders a chance to make something happen. I don't think the Raiders are really, top right. But I do think K-State, for one, I think that they have a big chance to surpass Texas because of their schedule. Yeah, they got Oklahoma coming up, but Oklahoma's Oklahoma.
I just watched the spider connect a web from us too. He just landed right here on my arm.
We gotta hurry up and get out.
Anyways, carry on.
Hey, it's
Right.
spooky season. The
It
spiders
is
are up.
spooky season.
Good point. Good time.
I just think, they're, first of all, we talked about how they said they're DBU. I don't know where the DB went. They're a university,
They're
but there's not.
don't even know if they're you.
No, nothing happening there. And they're in bad health. After that game against OSU, Chuba Hubbard did a damage, and they haven't recovered
He's
since
a
then.
wrecking ball. Yeah.
I think that, I'm not going to try to dive back into the Baylor thing that we talked about earlier because I don't want to hear it from either one of you. But they are going to be number 2. I do think that. And I think Iowa State, they're starting to kind of get it together. They have Hall coming in as a strong, running back. We'll see how he can do, if he can carry the team or not. But just, largely based off of how they've been playing lately and schedule, Texas is out of there.
Ooh. I love it. And Iowa State's finally the team that I thought they were at the beginning of the year when I said they were going to be in the Big 12 championship. Brock Purdy is 5th in the country in passing yards. I saw that stat this week and I was like, what? My guy? Brock Purdy?
My guy?
I said, what? But yeah, I was shocked. But I definitely, I don't know if I'd put them at 4th, but, I love that take.
Hey, that's my hot take.
DBU
So
more
what's
like
your take? What's
no
your
D and BU. Get it? So I'm gonna take my take. I'm gonna take Sam's Cauldron and stir it a little bit more. I don't think Alabama makes the top 6, and by top 6 I mean like New Year's Six Bowl. I think Alabama's gonna be like in the Cotton Bowl, and here's why. I think the Tua injury
is the biggest
a bigger problem than people are talking about because to quote Caroline Grace, who said it earlier.
What a throwback.
Caroline said earlier in the year on Gameday U that Tua's going to get hurt, and they're not going to have Jalen to bail them out.
She did call it, yeah.
She called it, and I got to give her credit for that. Sorry I messed up your last name. But this Tua injury is a big problem. I mean, it's the different ankle than it was last year, and I think that makes it even worse because he's still probably he's clearly vulnerable in that area, and it's kind of like how Steph Curry has always had problem with his ankles.
Yeah.
And Tua is absolutely an unbelievable talent, and when he is on and when he's playing well, he's incredible. But when he got hurt last year, before the game against Oklahoma, he had 4 weeks to recover and kind of rest and kind of get back to himself. And even then, pre-game, he talked about how he wasn't back to 100%. And so they have Arkansas this week, and he's not going to play. They could blindfold Mac Jones, the backup, and they would probably still beat Arkansas. That's how bad Arkansas is. And then they have a bye, and then they have LSU, who clearly, I mean, people will argue that even with Tua, LSU's the better team. So if Tua is either not able to play or not able to play at 100% in that game, you gotta favor LSU in that game. So that's a loss right there, which puts LSU on the inside track for the SEC championship game, and Alabama would then have a tough time getting into the college football playoff without even making it to their SEC championship game. But they would still have an argument if Tua comes back healthy and they win out. My argument is I don't think he does. I think this injury is more serious than I think people are letting on, and they have to play at Auburn to finish this year, an Auburn team that has. I mean, Caroline's going to love this segment, so she's just going to love this. But I mean, this Auburn team has looked really good this year, and I was worried when I was looking this up. I was worried whether this game was in Alabama or in Tuscaloosa or not at Auburn because I think freshman Bo Nix will play a lot better at home.
Yes,
but it is at home. It's in Auburn, and I think realistically, Alabama could end this season with 2 losses and not make the SEC championship game, and for the first time in I don't even know how long, might not make a New Year's Six Bowl because if LSU's in the playoff. Georgia, I would assume, wins out and makes the SEC championship game. That's the SEC contender. That's the SEC auto bid if LSU goes to the playoff. And if Auburn beats Alabama, you're not going to put Alabama in over Auburn to a New Year's Six Bowl. So I think there's a real path, especially if Tua cannot be back to 100%, that Alabama's in the Cotton Bowl playing Baylor. Who would have? I don't know.
Who would have?
I mean, I think it's
your whole hot take rides on.
Oh, it does.
Tua's ankles.
It really does. Like both of them. Like
he's really trying to snatch Tua's ankles out.
Like I'm just saying, like it's a real possibility. Like for the first time, and like I think that Alabama, like to your point, isn't as good as they've been in the past because that defense is susceptible. They've had injuries in the linebacking core, but who's to say? Who's to say that's not possible?
Who knows?
I'm just saying. Like,
that's the fun of these hot takes.
Yeah, we're stirring the cauldron. You know, it's like,
no.
there's all of the possibilities.
We stirred the cauldron. You straight up
you
kicked
threw
the cauldron
out of the stadium.
I'm just saying. I just wanted to get that out there so that whenever it happens, I can get credit for it. That's all I want. I just want the credit.
All right, we'll see. We'll be sure to give you the credit when the time comes.
Not doing very well percentage-wise.
Guys, we talked about games down the road. We talked about games in the future. What about games that are later on that you're looking for? Any that you got your eyes on, or Any storylines that you're looking at that are kind of dying out or kind of growing that you
Yeah,
think you could elaborate
when we were
on?
in Lawrence, I was excited about Ohio State, Wisconsin. That's lost a lot of glamour now.
I'm still
I'd
excited
say.
about it.
I'm
I
excited
believe
about
in
the
my
game, but it showed me that Wisconsin really is vulnerable on defense, and Ohio State's got the firepower to take advantage of some of that. I see another bee right behind me. This is terrifying. I've never been more scared in my life.
You're a big kid now. You got it.
This is the invasion of the flies. Most looking forward to. That's so hard to choose on the spot.
Anything you got.
I'd have to say probably. I would probably have to say the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
Because I think that if Oklahoma can beat Baylor twice, which is a big statement for them to go completely undefeated and not have anyone knocking on their door, I think that could really push them into playoffs. And quite frankly, I want to do a show from whatever bowl we're going to be at in the playoffs.
For sure.
The Big
So
Easy.
a little bit
Love
selfish
Big Easy.
of a reason wanting that game to happen. Then it's always just a fun game. It's always a lot on the line. It takes place down at AT&T Stadium, which is a beautiful place. But yeah, I'd have to say that's my game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Baylor, Texas. I think it's going to be a fun atmosphere, and especially because it'll be in Waco, and it'll be the first time in a while that Baylor will be competitive in that game, I think. And I mean, we've talked about Texas and Baylor enough, but I'm really earmarking that one to be a really good game coming up in the upcoming schedule.
Yeah. Following the trend of Halloween names during the Cauldron, we toss it back to the studio team. Who's in the coffin? Hopefully that segment is as sad and demeaning as it might sound and imply. I promise you won't want to miss it.
Whose CFP hopes are dead and buried? Well, let's discuss on this Halloween edition of Game Day U. I'm Meredith Mulkey alongside Austin Hernandez, Kemper Ball, and Zach Verdia. Guys, let's take a look at 3 one-loss teams who already have one foot in the grave. I want to know if you're willing to put the final nail in the coffin. Okay, let's start off with Wisconsin. They're at Ohio State today. Big time game. Zach, are you putting them in the grave? Are they done, or do they have a chance here?
Yeah, I'm gonna put them in the coffin. I think that loss last week to Illinois really just killed them completely. They were up 23-14 in the fourth quarter, again at Illinois, a team that hasn't been good in like 10 years since they beat Ohio State. Like in 2007, a long time. They are a bad football team. And Wisconsin couldn't close them out. They had plenty of chances. Jonathan Taylor fumbled at one point when they were up 23-14. Illinois went down, scored pretty easily. Then they had a third down, and Cone, just a pretty terrible throw, just lofted it up there, and Illinois picked it off, went down, and Wisconsin had a couple chances to stop Illinois from getting in really easy field goal range. They had a 3rd and 6 that Illinois just had a run play that busted off 10 yards and got them into easy field goal range. And Wisconsin plays Ohio State today. They're going to lose that game. Then they play Iowa next week. Could probably lose that game if Iowa can score 2 touchdowns, which is always up in the air. And then they play Nebraska and Purdue. Those are pretty easy. But then they got to play Minnesota, who could be a pretty good team if they're actually as good as their record indicates. So I don't feel comfortable saying Wisconsin has really any chance of making the college football playoff anymore.
All right.
For me, it's not that I don't think Wisconsin will. It's that I don't think Wisconsin will make the playoff, but that doesn't mean they can't. So I'm saying they're not dead yet because they've still got, and this is going to be a common theme with all of my picks, is they've got a common theme of opportunity. And Wisconsin has still got opportunities. They can go into it today and get a huge statement victory in Columbus. Let me ask you, if Wisconsin were to go into Columbus today and beat Ohio State, could you name anyone with a better win in the country right now?
I don't think you could.
Definitely.
I think it would be. I think everyone has pretty much consensusly agreed that Ohio State has looked the most dominant team in college football on all 3 sides of the ball. Offense is clicking with Justin Fields. Defense is creating turnovers and holding teams to low scoring margins. Ohio State has beat every team by at least 24 points. So for Wisconsin to come into Columbus and get a win today, that would put them right back in the discussion. And then Let's say they beat Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. That's another huge win. And that's at that point, it gets pretty hard to deny them a college football playoff spot. One loss, Big Ten champion. The Illinois loss, I know, is a bad loss. About as bad a loss as they could have had. If there was one team on their schedule they wouldn't have wanted to lose to, this might have been it. This might be the worst team on their schedule. However, I think it was more of a look-ahead game. They were getting excited about Ohio State. They were thinking about Ohio State being game day next week. Kind of spoiled that for them. Weren't focused on what they were doing, and they came up with a loss, and that happens. But I think they've got enough opportunities left on their schedule that they can bounce back. And they've also got Jonathan Taylor, and how dead can you ever really be when you've got a running back like Jonathan Taylor on your roster?
Yeah, good points there, but I'm going to agree with Zach on this one. I'm going to say that Wisconsin, I'm going to put them in the coffin, put the nail on the coffin. We kind of said earlier that game against Illinois, that was supposed to be their tune-up game, and they didn't take advantage of it. They had 3 turnovers, and I think that was the biggest game factor going into this game was Illinois. They capitalized on all those turnovers, and just they have Iowa next week. They play Ohio State today at Ohio State. Just the scenarios there just aren't lined up for them to be, a contender in the playoff. They're going to have a lot happen in order for them to squeeze in there. They're going to have some teams lose, a little bit of shakeup. But they didn't take advantage of this opportunity here to get tuned up before a big game today. I think Kemper's right. I think they kind of looked ahead and kind of got excited. Game day's coming next week, and that's definitely what kind of screwed them up here. You kind of said it earlier. You don't want one of your losses to come to an Illinois team, especially if you're going to lose. You kind of want it to come to a better team. That way you can say, well, they lost to
and earlier.
Yeah, and earlier. You don't want to have it come midway through the season. So it's just a blow for Wisconsin all around, and just the offense they couldn't get going, and it's a shame because now it kind of shook things up for them. So
it's a blow for us too as fans. I really wanted to see that number 8 versus number 4 matchup this week.
And
it really ruined. We've got a great slate of games this week, but that was kind of the highlight. That was the big marquee game, and now it's just a lot less appealing because of that Illinois loss. But I still think it'll be a fun game.
Yeah, no, it's definitely still going to be hyped up. You kind of said it. If Wisconsin pulls this off,
biggest win of the year for anyone.
That is a game changer. I don't think they will, but if they somehow make it happen, then that's going to shake things up even more. So there's still some hype.
It gives them a very clear way to get back into the playoffs.
Revenge game.
Pretty much the only way, if you've lost a game, pretty much the only way to get back in is to beat a team that's in. Yeah. It's to beat a team that's being considered for a playoff spot.
And what better way to bounce back than to beat Ohio State at Ohio State?
Absolutely, I like that.
All right, big game. Now let's move on to the big Georgia Bulldogs. Do they still have a chance in the playoffs, or are they done for? Are they in the coffin? Zach?
Yeah, I'm going to keep going with it. I think Georgia is done. I'm putting them in the coffin. I think that loss a couple weeks ago at home against South Carolina was pretty telling. Jake Fromm doesn't really look like the quarterback that everyone expected him to blossom into, kind of going off of the Trevor Lawrence talk earlier. A guy that came in really big, highly recruited quarterback coming in, and just hasn't gotten to the level that you would expect Georgia to be at right now, being ranked 3rd basically the whole season. And then they played Kentucky last week. It was a really sloppy game. It was raining. Could barely even throw the ball. That's probably why Jake Fromm had 35 passing yards, which how is that even possible? But you can't. I just think that they play Auburn later. They play Florida next week, and I just don't think that Georgia can come back. They have big games on their schedule that could be impressive wins, but at the end of the day, I think Georgia is just no longer in that discussion for one of the last spots in the college football playoff.
You said Jake Fromm had 35 yards? That's terrible.
That's just unacceptable.
For me, and it's a similar situation to Wisconsin. I don't think they were going to be in that playoff conversation anyway, but theoretically, Georgia has still got a chance, so I'm not ready to bury them. I'm not putting them in a coffin yet. See, because Georgia, much like Wisconsin, here's that word again, has opportunities. They go to Florida here in a couple weeks. They go to Auburn. They're going to have the SEC championship game most likely if they win against Florida. So there's definitely still chances for them to get back in. They had that hiccup against South Carolina. Random things happen, crazy occurrences, miracles, whatever you want to call it. But this is a well-coached, well-disciplined team, and just like Wisconsin, it takes one win. They beat LSU today, and they are or LSU here in a couple, or Florida here in a couple weeks, and they are right back in the hunt. However, do I think that's going to happen? Not necessarily. I think Jake Fromm is a game manager. I think he's kind of like the college Alex Smith. I'd like their chances a lot better if they had, I don't know, Justin Fields, the guy they let walk to Ohio State. Don't know what Kirby Smart was thinking on that one. But I just don't think Jake Fromm brings you the tools to get it done in those big games. I think that they're still alive, and I think that they've got a chance because they've got such big games coming up on their schedule. A win at Florida and at Auburn would be the two best wins a team has right now, the two best teams that an individual team has. But those are tough games. I think they can win them both, but I see them dropping at least one. But theoretically, Georgia, not dead. They can still fight their way back in if they want to, or if they feel like it.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a difficult one for me, but I'm going to go ahead and put Georgia in the coffin. I'm just going to keep it rolling. I know.
I'm on an island here,
I
guys.
know. But you kind of said it. Jake Fromm. I mean, he doesn't look as clear cut as he did last season. He's kind of had a little bit of slip ups. Played Kentucky last week. A little bit of a slow start. Zach, you kind of said it. The weather wasn't in their favor, but I mean, they didn't look too impressive. And this loss here to South Carolina is just one you don't want. You got a pick six here, and this Georgia team, they're going to come close. If they beat Florida, and say they beat Auburn, but I have them losing in the SEC championship. Most likely it's going to be to Alabama. Kemper, you kind of said it. When you look at the big picture, I don't think that Jake Fromm is going to be the guy to take them to the promised land. And so, I mean, they're a good team. Take no credit away from them. They're a good team. But, I mean, as far as saying that they have a chance to squeeze in, I don't see it happening. I see them losing in the SEC championship if they get past Florida and Auburn. But, I mean, I guess we just have to wait and see. So
I think the biggest question mark surrounding Georgia is, we know that they're better than just about everyone they're going to play on their schedule, except for, say, maybe a Florida or Auburn and an Alabama and an SEC championship game. But what you worry about is something similar that I was talking about earlier in the show, and that's when they get into the playoff. Are they going to be able to win those sustained shootouts with the high-powered offenses that we're seeing? Can Jake Fromm keep up with Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts and, again, the guy that they let walk, Justin Fields? I cannot reiterate enough that they could have had Justin Fields at this point in time. And I think that magnifies everything that Jake Fromm does. I think everything that he does this year is going to be put under a magnifying glass and compared with what Justin Fields is doing in Ohio State. He's having a much better year. And it's a bad look for Kirby Smart, who I think is a great coach, one of the best coaches in the country, but it is a bad look for him that he let Justin Fields walk to let the college Alex Smith keep starting and probably ruin Georgia's chances at a national championship in this stretch.
And yeah, that's a really interesting point to bring up because, we saw it with Dabo. He benched Kelly Bryant for Trevor Lawrence. You saw it with Nick Saban. He benched Jalen Hurts for Tua. It just kind of shows the level of coaching that they're at, that they're not afraid to sit someone down and say, I have a better option.
Yeah.
He's a better quarterback, I'm sorry, and starting him, and we're seeing that with Justin Fields.
Yeah, and none of this helps the fact that Justin Fields, he's having a monster year. So I think, as he gets better and better each game, we're going to keep looking back at Kirby Smart saying, what were you doing? How did you let this man go? And the thing is with Justin Fields is he's a mobile quarterback. And I feel like in today's college football era, the mobile quarterbacks, they're a game changer for your offense. They're able to just run past options. They open up a lot of things. And so, I don't know what he was thinking as well.
I just don't think Jake Fromm gives Georgia the same offensive output that it's going to take to win a national championship.
No, not at all.
All right, guys, great. Well, when we return, Christian, William, Shiloh, and Sam have the final wrap from the Little Apple. Stay with us on this spooky Saturday morning as Game Day U continues.
What's up, Sooner fans? It's time to hit the books as Oklahoma hits the gridiron later today with Kansas State. Some beautiful fall foliage back behind us here in Manhattan, Kansas. And of course, the last time the Sooners were here, they barely squeaked out a win 42-35 over the Wildcats back in 2017. Parker Thune alongside Kansas State media member Ryan Gilbert to break down the matchups today between the Sooners and the Wildcats. And Ryan, let's start with the obvious. This is maybe the most potent Sooners team that Kansas State has seen over the last decade or two. What do they have to do to keep this from becoming a runaway?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. This team really can light it up on both sides of the football, even defensively, that we haven't seen much with Oklahoma. But I think the biggest key for K-State, Malik Knowles is going to have some explosive plays for K-State, similar to what Oklahoma can do. He had a return for a touchdown on the road at Mississippi State. He's going to have to play. He was doubtful last week, and he ended up playing 10 or 20 snaps. He was on kind of a pitch count, but he still played, made an impact. They got the win somehow, some way. But he's going to have to be on the field for pretty much every snap, in my opinion, if K-State's going to have even a chance to compete in this game.
Scheme-wise, what do you think the Wildcats draw up to keep this game close?
Well, I think you've got to control the clock, control the tempo, you got to control everything in this game if you want a chance to win. Like I said, Oklahoma, you give them the ball, they're probably going to score. K-State, they get the ball. Even if you go down and get a field goal, I'll take that as a fan, as a whatever. But you got to control, especially time of possession. Make sure that this game doesn't get out of hand quick.
And Jalen Hurts has a slew of offensive weapons to operate with. Which one do you feel like Kansas State needs to take away more than any of the others in order to keep Oklahoma within their grasp?
I think CeeDee Lamb, there's no question about that. A.J. Parker is probably going to be guarding him later on today. Obviously, we know what Jalen Hurts is going to do. There's no question about that. So keeping CeeDee Lamb in check will be key for this team.
Ryan Gilbert, thank you so much. That's all from out here. We'll send you back into the stadium. Christian, William, Shiloh, and Sam are standing by.
My people, welcome back. We're still here at Bill Snyder Stadium. This is the last segment for us, guys, which means we're inching ever so closer to game time.
Woo! And I to you guys.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm tired of the bugs and this terrible shadow. Unfortunately, the stadium lights weren't placed in our favor today.
It's all cool, man. It's
we just really didn't want to sit by
Sam's been shunned.
Yeah.
I'm having fun.
You're talking about the book with the flies. I don't know. You're on your own
More
island.
of the flies.
More of the flies. Yeah, you're on your own island over there, buddy.
Thanks a lot, man.
Seeing as though the way Lord of the Flies went down, maybe we should have Sam move over because I'm not trying to be brutally massacred. Anyways.
Oh, it got dark. Okay.
Anyways. Final word, final call out, final score. You know this segment. Sam, what's your final word?
Yeah, my final word's going to be escape. And by that I mean escape this place with a win. They've got the chance to be trapped by Kansas State. This is not by no means a pushover team, especially a pushover defense. So Oklahoma's got to stick to their fundamentals, stick to what they know, make sure the things that they're improving upon, they're better at, and just get out of Kansas State with a win. Get to the bye week at 8-0, healthy hopefully, and then you can reset. You've got 2 weeks to figure out all the things, all the little kinks they need to work out. Escape Manhattan, get with the win, and then we can move on.
We touched on it earlier in the show, but my word has to be starving. And that's because we talked about it. Kansas State is not a team to overlook at all. Their defense is formidable. I think that they need to come in starving for the win. I think they really need to put it all out there early. Our offense, faltered a little bit in Texas, took it slow last week. Now let's hit the ground running. I think that they've got to come in and they've got to get it done, and they've got to want this win. It's going to be the same thing of not expecting a win, but being hungry for it.
Oh yeah, I agree. And my final
Soleil
word.
looks so short over there, by the way. I just wanted to point that out.
Why you gonna flame me like that, man? That's just rude.
You guys left me out here to dry.
That's just rude.
And I look over.
I'm sorry that I'm
Shiloh's
lounging
here
so that I'm in the
Soleil's
sun.
here, and I just thought that was funny. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Jeez, so rude.
Thank you for
I
calling
was
that out,
into
Sam. I love
my
that.
call out or my final word.
Yeah, I mean we haven't even gotten to call outs
My
yet,
call
man.
out's
Come
gonna-
on.
We should
my
just
call
call
out's gonna
out
be
Sam.
solid.
Yeah,
My call
Sam,
out's
I'm calling out
for
for you for
being
being
mean.
rude. You're being rude, okay?
I'm hurting
But
feelings.
we talked about it earlier in the show. My final word is alligator. And for those of you who didn't watch Jalen Hurts' press conference after the game, it's not a reference to Florida. That'll come later. If Florida ever makes it to the playoff, that'll be a whole thing.
Kyle Trask is bad.
They're pretty good. But alligator, and the reason why is because when an alligator is full and has just recently eaten, they get complacent and they sit, and that's when they are satisfied and they are most vulnerable. And so Jalen Hurts talked about in his post-game press conference that they didn't want to be alligators. So this team is going to be lions, always on the prowl, always on the hunt.
Starving.
They're starving, exactly. Like even when they just ate, they're still starving, and that's how they have to be. Because I think we've all talked about it. Like this is typical trap game. This could be a very easy, if Oklahoma lets this team hang around. Like this is a good Kansas State team that they're about to play.
Yeah.
So my word is alligator for those reasons.
Good word choice.
Yeah.
I'm glad we saved that for this segment.
Yeah, I didn't want y'all to take my stuff.
It really gave you the time to
After Sam insults me.
It was a heck of a surprise.
Okay. My final word is going to have to be triumphant. I think, as you said, this could be one of those trap games. Kansas State, they're not a bad team. I feel like they're kind of getting swept under the rug as one of the rest of the Big 12 teams that aren't as good as Oklahoma, which I mean I agree with, but I still think that this OU team needs to go out and be triumphant and come away with a victory. I'd like to keep it short and simple. Sam, final score, what you got? Call out. Does it matter? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Call out. What you got?
My call out is going to be Sule's chair. No, just kidding.
Man, he's
Sule's-
ripping you.
Kick a horse while he's down.
My call out is going to be running back coach Jay Boulware. Now, the running back group is arguably the strongest and the deepest unit that Oklahoma has. They go 4 deep during the game. However, we are 8 weeks in, 9 weeks in, and not one of them has stood out from the pack yet. You look at the stats, Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon have each reached double digits only twice each this season out of the 7 games. Furthermore, Jalen Hurts has done great as a scrambler, and we know he's a great runner, but he got over a third of the team's rushing yards all the season. For a running back group that's that efficient, that talented, that deep, that can't happen. So Jay Boulware and Lincoln Riley have to sit down and really figure out ways to get these running backs in spots where they can shine. Maybe set the tone with those running backs tomorrow, and then you can find those opportunities for Jalen. But this run game's got to get going. It can't just all be QB1.
Interesting. Well, my call out has to be Drake Stoops. Man, you dropped it.
Talk about beating a dead horse.
The thing is that there's so many bright and shining stars on this offense that the one time Drake had his moment to shine, he lost it, and he got lost in the great abyss. He dropped it. Jalen would have had a perfect game had he kept the ball in his hands. And I mean, we want another Heisman, so Stoops, don't mess it up for us.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been kind of hard. I mean, everybody's been
I
kind
don't
of
think
hard.
I've ever heard the word Stoops don't mess it up for us, unless it was in reference to Mike.
Hey.
Or Bob. But he ain't five.
Hey.
You know,
We digress.
I would never say such a thing about Bob
A
Stoops.
producer in my ear saying, let's get back on track.
My call out is the defensive line. They played incredibly up until this point this year, but no sacks recorded in the game last year. They had a couple tackles, 9 tackles for loss, which is impressive. But the defensive line, just like the rest of the team, the defensive line measures themselves by sacks, I think, in the same way that the secondary will measure themselves by turnovers. So I think I'm calling out the defensive line. I want to see some sacks this weekend.
Yeah, my call is going to be an extension of what you said. You called out Jay Boulware in the running backs room. My call is going to be Trey Sermon. This guy hasn't scored since
2 straight weeks.
We played Kansas. Trey Sermon, we
The
talked about how you were so good throughout the beginning of the season. You lost weight. Your game had really improved. And in the first few weeks, we were really able to see that on full display. But now I feel like that ability and that skill that you've had has kind of diminished. And I don't know where it's gone. Maybe it's been a product of Jalen Hurts carrying the ball more often or the other running backs getting an opportunity. But I really want to see you get back in there in the fold and shine. Guys, final score.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. I'm going with Oklahoma this one, 51-16. The offense gets off to a quick start. I think the defense gets the statement that they're looking for against Kansas State. It really gets to the quarterback, Skylar Thompson. James Gilbert's going to be a tough matchup for that rush defense, but I think they managed to kind of contain them like they did Puka in Kansas. It's just going to be another day for the Sooners, I think.
Mine is very close to yours. I'm also taking Oklahoma 56-14. I mean, don't get me wrong, this K-State team is a good team, but it's on the defensive side of the ball, and they don't score touchdowns that often. So I think that they are going to score low, but I think that the Oklahoma offense is going to go big.
Yeah, I have Oklahoma as well, 55-21, covering a 23.5-point spread and going way over the 58.5. But I think this will be a good game for both offenses.
I'm going to have to go 41-24. I don't think they cover. But that'll be it from us here at Bill Snyder Stadium. It was a pleasure working with you all, Sam. I wish we could. It's so far away, I feel that. But anyways, we'll have to toss it back to the studio team, and they'll wrap us up.
Gameday U, but we've got one final segment before we sign off this morning. I'm Meredith Mulkey alongside Austin Hernandez, Kemper Ball, and Zach Verdia. Well, as Christian and the gang noted, today should be a walk in the park for the Sooners, but across the nation there are several matchups that are shaping up to be absolute dogfights. Let's start with the horseshoe with Wisconsin and Ohio State. The Buckeyes are on a tear. Quarterback Justin Fields is squarely in the Heisman conversation, and his offense is loaded. They haven't scored less than 34 points in a game this season, but can they make headway against this Wisconsin defense? The Badgers are reeling after an upset loss to Illinois last week in which they were favored by 30 points. However, Wisconsin still boasts a juggernaut of a defensive unit. They allowed just 29 points over the first 6 games of the season, and they'll be hungry to prove last week's loss was just a blip on the radar. Another relevant tidbit, Jonathan Taylor surpassed 5,000 career rushing yards last week, and he's just a junior. Zach, we'll start with you. Who wins this one?
I'm going to go with Ohio State here. I think Lovie Smith and Illinois last week showed that you can run on this team a little bit. J.K. Dobbins is averaging 7.1 yards a carry. Master Teague, the backup, averaging 7 yards a carry. I think Ohio State can run right through Wisconsin and keep putting up the numbers they have and win this game.
Yeah, I'm going Ohio State too. I think home field advantage is going to be a big factor here. I think it's going to be, like you said, they're going to be able to run the ball pretty easily. I think Justin Fields has a good game on the ground. I think he runs for a couple touchdowns. I'm going Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it rolling, going Ohio State as well. I think the biggest thing here is Justin Fields and his ability to run the ball. We kind of talked about it earlier. Dual threat quarterbacks, they're game changers, and I don't think Wisconsin has seen any type of offense that Ohio State runs yet. That loss is still in the back of their mind. They know they're going to have to come up big here. So I think the pressure's on. It's at Ohio State. So going Ohio State.
All right, Ohio State. Here we go. Our next marquee matchup on the slate today is 9th-ranked Auburn Tigers visiting the 2nd-ranked LSU Tigers, and we're fortunate enough to have one of our own, Caroline Grace, down at Death Valley with a preview. Caroline, take it away.
Thanks, Meredith. Now, the special thing about this game is that you don't have to be an SEC fan. The matchup between the Plainsmen and the Bio Bengals is never disappointing, sometimes historical, and is a must-watch for all college football fans. This competition dates all the way back to 1901, but let me take you through some of the most historical events that lie within this game. Starting in 1988, Auburn traveled to Death Valley in hopes of a national championship in their future. This game is most commonly remembered as the Earthquake. Auburn was held to 2 field goals and LSU was scoreless until 1:47 left in the 4th. And the Cajuns managed to score. As we all know, Death Valley has one of the most electric atmospheres in the nation, but this play made the crowd's eruption so powerful that it registered as an earthquake on the seismograph located in their Earth Center. In 1994, Auburn trailed 23-9 going into the 4th quarter, but LSU QB Jamie Howard threw 5 interceptions, 3 of which were returned for touchdowns. Auburn extended to a 15-game winning streak while QB Howard received multiple death threats. And just 2 years later, in '96, LSU defeated Auburn 19-15 inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. Meanwhile, behind the stadium, the old Auburn Sports Arena, a.k.a. the Barn, burned to the ground. The flames reached the East Upper Deck and were seen on ESPN's live television broadcast. This night will forever go down as the night the barn burned. Now let's get into the 21st century. In 2001, the 9/11 terrorist attacks caused the game to be played in December and was used as a mini playoff. During pregame warm-ups, Auburn stomped on LSU's midfield logo, which set the tone for the entire game. But during halftime, Auburn's kicker got into a fist fight with an LSU band member. This same kicker did not make another field goal, and the Cajuns won 27-14. In 2010, both teams were ranked and undefeated, but one of the most talented players to ever wear orange and blue was able to rush for 217 yards. That's right, QB Cam Newton single-handedly led his team to a victory. And get this, in 2017, Auburn blew a 20-point lead. After an intense game of catch-up and 2 field goals late in the 4th, LSU squeaked out a win. And although Auburn went to the SEC championship, the War Eagle cry could only be heard from the Peach Bowl, and LSU had to settle for the Citrus Bowl. Now, guys, I get it. It's the SEC, and you're thinking, what does this have to do with me and Norman? But with Auburn making their way back into the top 10 and LSU on an outrageous win streak, you do not want to miss this SEC matchup. You could be tuning into history, especially because the last time Auburn beat LSU in Death Valley was before I was born in 1999. Now, this could finally be the game that enables OU to be in the top 3. Now, as you can see, this is more than a game. This is college football. Now, I don't know about y'all, but my money's on the Tigers. From Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I'm Caroline Grace. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Caroline. All right, our picks here might upset her a little bit, but who do you guys have?
I'm going to go with LSU. I think Joe Burrow, he has 29 passing touchdowns already, and that's a school record. We haven't seen an LSU quarterback really like him at all that's been capable of running their offense to match the defense that they always have. And I think that LSU is going to come in. I think Derek Stingley Jr., who has 3 interceptions on the year, he is definitely going to pick off Bo Nix at least one time this game. And I think LSU is going to cruise to a win. They've been playing better than they have in a long time, and they have that Alabama game locked in. They're ready for that, and they're not going to let anything mess that up.
Kemper?
Yeah, I'm with him. I'm going with LSU, and of our 3 games, I think this one has the biggest potential to get out of hand pretty quickly. I think LSU is going to win this game by a large margin. For Auburn to win this game, they're going to have to disrupt Joe Burrow. They're going to have to get in his face, and no one's been able to do that. The dude's unfaceable. He's a machine. And also, you're sending on the other side of that coin, you're sending Bo Nix down to Death Valley. As Coach O put it, that's where dreams go to die. I hope he's got his brown pants on today. I'm taking LSU by a big margin. Bo Nix is going to be scared down there.
Yeah, definitely. I think the smart pick here is to go with LSU, so I'm going to keep it rolling. I don't think it's lined up for Auburn to come out with a win. It's at LSU. I think this is the game Bo Nix gets exposed. I can see him having multiple interceptions. I could see this Auburn team just exploding maybe in the first half, just kind of falling apart. I see Joe Burrow having a monster game, just kind of helping him in his Heisman candidate season. I think this LSU team, they're great offensively, they're great defensively. Auburn, they kind of been sliding by each game. You know, they've been barely edging their big games out. Florida, Oregon at the beginning of the season. So I definitely think this is the game that they get exposed and they just fall apart, and we kind of see the true side of Auburn after this game.
See, I think Bo Nix is going to develop into a good player. I think he's already a good player, but I think he's going to develop into a really strong, like probably elite SEC quarterback, but he just doesn't have it, and Auburn's offense in total doesn't have it to compete with that Joe Burrow offense that they're running at LSU. They're putting up way too many points. And the fact that it's a home game, I mean, imagine being 18 years old, you're a college freshman, and you're going to LSU. You've got to go play in Baton Rouge. I don't care who your freshman quarterback is. I don't want to see that. I don't want that on my team, that's for sure. I'm thinking it's going to be a multiple interception game for Bo Nix, but he's going to come along. He'll get it together eventually, but not today, not against the Tigers.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, our third and final big-time matchup on the schedule today, Notre Dame heads to the Big House. The Irish need to win and win convincingly to reassert themselves as college football playoff contender. Michigan is the last-ranked team on Notre Dame's schedule, and with no conference championship game to speak of, they're in dire need of a signature win. Meanwhile, the Wolverines squandered a huge opportunity to claim a signature win of their own last week. They hung with Penn State at Beaver Stadium for much of the game, but couldn't come away with the victory in the end. Now they're just trying to salvage their hopes of playing in the Big Ten title game, and Jim Harbaugh is just trying to hold on to his job for another year. Zach, can the Maize and Blue rebound today?
I don't think so. I'm going to take Notre Dame coming into the Big House and winning this game. Notre Dame has bounced back a little bit since that loss to Georgia. Ian Book threw 2 interceptions that game, and he only has 2 on the whole season, 14 touchdowns to go with it. Since then, he has 6 touchdowns, no picks. They beat Virginia, who's a pretty decent team, and USC, who is off and on. Hopefully, it was an on week, and it was a good win for them. But I'm going to take Notre Dame. I think if they get Tony Jones Jr., the running back, going 7 yards a carry, that he can get the wheels turning for Notre Dame. And Julian Okwara on the defense had 3 sacks a couple weeks ago. If he gets going and keeps that up consistently, I think Notre Dame can get themselves back in the conversation.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm taking Michigan at home. I think home field advantage plays a huge factor in this one. As I said a couple weeks ago, we all know that the Big House is one of the most difficult places to go and get a win. So I'm going with Michigan. It feels like Harbaugh is due for a win. He's got 1 win over a top 10 opponent. It feels like he's due to break it open a little bit, get Michigan back on track, and we'll see if he can rewrite the narrative for this season.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Kemper on this one. It feels like Michigan is due for a big win. They had their huge loss against Wisconsin. I mean, it was a bad loss, and overall, they had Penn State last week at Penn State. They came close to that one, so I definitely think this game is the game that they surpassed kind of that downhill that they're in, and they come out with a victory against Notre Dame. It is in Ann Arbor. It's a great atmosphere to play in. Jim Harbaugh, he's going to have this team ready, and they're going to be ready to go and get the win today.
All right, let's quickly go into our upset picks of the day. Zach, who do you have?
I'm going to take Michigan State over Penn State. said they were done earlier in the show, so I think they're going to be done this week. Michigan State has an experienced quarterback, Brian Lewerke. He's not great by any means. He can manage a game. He's got 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. As long as you have a number 1 wide receiver, he has Darrell Stevens Jr., who has 683 yards already. If they can lean on him and they can get him going, get that defense going. Kenny Willekes has 4 sacks. Their defense doesn't give up too many points a game, and they put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So I think Michigan State can basically end Penn State's season today.
Okay, my upset pick. I'm going to look like a crazy person. I can feel my dad shaking his head already. But I'm going right now. I'm telling you, Boston College will beat Clemson at home today. Trevor Lawrence's bad play catches up with him. He throws a couple picks. I see my man Cal Day likes the pick. I'm going Boston College. I'm swinging for the fences. I got my upset pick right last week. I like this one. I'm going Boston College. Big win over Clemson.
Yeah, I'm going to go quick on this one. I got Washington State over Oregon. I know I kind of praised Justin Herbert earlier, but, I mean, Washington State is 4-0 in the last 4 years against Oregon, if that says anything. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mike Leach. He's a great coach. He's going to have this team ready. It is in Oregon, but, I mean, I think Washington State comes out with the win here. So.
Yeah, that passing offense that they've got in
that air raid,
Washington State. It can have a big day. It could have a big day in Oregon.
You can never sleep on Mike
Leach. Come in
Leach.
and tear your team apart.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Great job, you guys. So that's it for us today on Game Day U. We won't be back here next week, but after that, come back 2 weeks from now. We'll be same place, same time. Check us out for all things college football. Thanks for joining us. And right now, you can take a look at LSU Tiger Stadium. Great live shot here. Have a great game day, everybody.
Boomer Sooner.